July 22nd, 2024, 6 a.m. The first light of dawn filtered through the cracks in the battered farmhouse, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I woke up sore and stiff, my body protesting every movement. The farmhouse, which had once been my fortress, lay in ruins around me. The blood moon had taken its toll, and it was clear I couldn't stay here any longer. I forced myself up, biting back the pain. Survival had no room for comfort. I needed to move, to find somewhere more secure before the next blood moon. With the farmhouse barely standing, it was time to gather what I could, and head to a new location. A place I'd only heard about in passing, but seemed like my best shot. Navezgane. 7 a.m. After a quick, tasteless breakfast, I began packing. I prioritized the essentials: weapons, remaining food, medical supplies, and tools. My hands moved on autopilot, methodically sorting and packing. The bicycle I'd found days earlier would be my transport, loaded with everything I could carry. The farmhouse had given me a lot, but now it was just a shell. I took one last look around, memorizing the layout and the lessons I'd learned here. Then, with a heavy heart, I set off into the unknown. 8 a.m. The once familiar streets were now overgrown and littered with abandoned vehicles, and the occasional, shambling figure of a zombie. I kept to the shadows, avoiding open areas and moving as silently as possible. Every creak of the bicycle and rustle of leaves set my nerves on edge. The constant tension was exhausting, but I knew I had no choice. The safety of Navezgane was a gamble, but staying behind was a guaranteed death sentence. 10 a.m. I reached an old gas station, its windows shattered and its interior ransacked. Still, I decided to take a chance and search for supplies. Inside, I found a few useful items: canned food, water bottles, and a small toolkit. Every little bit helped. As I turned to leave, a noise caught my attention. A group of zombies, drawn by my presence, was closing in. I took a deep breath, gripping my bow tightly. There was no room for mistakes. I nocked an arrow and aimed for the nearest one. 11 a.m. The fight was brutal and quick. Arrows flew, each one finding its mark. The zombies dropped, one by one, but not without a cost. My arm ached from the repeated draws of the bow, and a few close calls left me shaken. But I was alive, and that's what mattered. The weight of the supplies on the bicycle was a small price to pay for the security they offered. Navezgane was still miles away, but each step brought me closer. 1 p.m. The midday sun beat down on me as I pedaled along the deserted road. The world seemed to blur together. Ruins of houses, overgrown fields, the occasional zombie wandering aimlessly. It was a grim reminder of what the world had become. 3 p.m. The area was eerily quiet, but there was a sense of potential. I could see a few structures in the distance, one of which looked like a fortified house. It was perfect. I approached cautiously, ready for anything. The house was in surprisingly good condition, with sturdy walls and even a basement. I took it as a good omen and started making it my new base. 5 p.m. I began fortifying the house, using the tools and materials I'd brought. The work was grueling, but there was a sense of purpose in it. Each nail driven into the wood, each board placed over a window, felt like a step towards safety. 7 p.m. The sun was setting. I took a moment to survey my work. The house was far from perfect, but it was a start. Exhausted, I set up a temporary sleeping area in one of the rooms, keeping my weapons within reach. 9 p.m. Night fell, and the familiar sounds of the undead began to echo through the empty streets. I sat by the window, eyes scanning the darkness. The traps and fortifications I'd set up should hold for now, but I couldn't let my guard down. 11 p.m. A small group of zombies tested the defenses, but they held. Arrows flew, and the undead fell. Each encounter was a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked, but also a testament to my growing skills and resilience. 1 a.m. Exhaustion finally forced me to rest. I lay on the makeshift bed, reflecting on the day. The journey had been perilous, but I'd made it. And with time and effort, it could become a true sanctuary. I closed my eyes, clutching my bow tightly. The blood moon was a constant threat, but for now, I was safe. Tomorrow, I'd continue fortifying and planning. Survival was a never-ending battle, but it was one I was determined to win. July 23rd, 2024, 6 a.m. Morning breaks with a grim reminder of the struggle that lies ahead. The fortified house in Navezgane offers a semblance of security, but I know it's temporary. The blood moon is a constant looming threat. Every day counts. Every minute matters. Today, I need to gather more supplies and continue fortifying my new home. 7 a.m. After a quick meal of cold beans, I set out. The air is thick with the stench of decay, and the oppressive silence is occasionally broken by the distant moans of the undead. I move cautiously, bicycle loaded with gear, eyes scanning for any sign of danger. 9 a.m. I reach an abandoned gas station. Its windows are shattered, and the interior is a wreck. But I have no choice. I need supplies. I slip inside, the smell of mold and rot assaulting my senses. I rummage through the shelves, finding a few useful items: food, water, and a small toolkit. 10 a.m. The sound of shuffling feet and low growls reaches my ears. I turn, heart pounding, to see a group of zombies converging on the gas station. Their eyes are empty, their movements jerky and unnatural. There's no time to think. I nock an arrow and let it fly, the bowstring singing with deadly precision. 10 a.m. The first arrow pierces a zombie's skull, dropping it instantly. But there are too many. I move quickly, ducking behind shelves and firing shot after shot. The stench of their decaying flesh fills the air, mixing with the metallic tang of blood. One of them gets too close, and I swing my spiked pipe with all my might, feeling it connect with a sickening crunch. 11 a.m. The fight is brutal. Blood and gore splatter the walls as I fend off the horde. My muscles scream with fatigue, but I can't stop. I can't afford to. Finally, the last of them falls, its head split open like an overripe melon. I stand there, panting, covered in sweat and blood. The gas station is a mess, but I've survived. Barely. 12 p.m. I resume my journey, shaken, but determined. The supplies I've gathered are meager, but they'll have to do. The road ahead is long, and every shadow seems to hold a threat. 1 p.m. The midday sun beats down as I pedal along the deserted road. The world around me is a wasteland of abandoned cars, overgrown streets, and the occasional corpse, now nothing more than a feast for flies. The oppressive heat and the constant vigilance required to stay alive are taking their toll. 3 p.m. The area is desolate, but there's a strange sense of familiarity. The rumors I've heard about this place give me a glimmer of hope. I pedal slowly through the streets, the bicycle creaking beneath me as I search for a suitable place to make my new home. 4 p.m. I find it, a fortified house, seemingly untouched by the chaos around it. Its walls are sturdy, and there's even a basement. This place could be a fortress, a sanctuary in this hellish world. I approach cautiously, every sense on high alert. 5 p.m. I secure the area as best I can, setting up makeshift alarms and traps around the perimeter. The house is in surprisingly good condition, but I can't let my guard down. I start fortifying immediately, using the tools and materials I've gathered. The work is grueling, but it's necessary. 7 p.m. The sun is beginning to set. I do a final check of the fortifications, ensuring everything is secure. The house is becoming a true fortress, but I know the fight is far from over. The looming threat of the blood moon is always on my mind. 8 p.m. Dinner is another can of beans, eaten quickly as I survey my work. The garden and water system will have to wait until tomorrow. Tonight, I need to be ready for whatever comes. I sit on the porch, watching the darkness gather. The night brings a sense of unease, but also a strange calm. 9 p.m. Night falls, and the familiar sounds of the undead start up again. The moans, the shuffling feet, the distant howls. I sit by the window, compound bow in hand, watching the darkness. The traps and fortifications I've set should hold, but I can't afford to be complacent. 11 p.m. A small group of zombies tests the defenses. They claw at the barricades, but they hold firm. I pick them off with the bow, each shot precise and deadly. Their bodies pile up outside, a grim testament to my growing skills and determination. 1 a.m. Exhaustion finally forces me to rest. I lie down on my makeshift bed. The house is becoming more secure, but the fight is far from over. I have much more to do, more to learn, but I'm ready. I close my eyes, the sounds of the night fading as I drift into a fitful sleep. July 24th, 2024, 6 a.m. The first rays of dawn filter through the grimy windows of the gas station where I found temporary refuge. I wake up stiff and sore. The events of yesterday still fresh in my mind. The blood and gore on my clothes are a stark reminder of the brutality of this world. There's no time to dwell on it, though. Today, I reach Navezgane. 7 a.m. After a quick, tasteless breakfast, I gather my supplies and set off. The road is eerily quiet, the silence broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or distant moan of a zombie. I push forward, every nerve on edge, knowing that any moment could bring a new threat. 9 a.m. The journey is slow and treacherous. The landscape is a wasteland of abandoned cars, overgrown streets, and the occasional corpse, now nothing more than a feast for flies. The sun is climbing higher, and the heat is oppressive. I keep moving, my eyes scanning for any sign of danger. 10 a.m. I finally reach the outskirts of Navezgane. The area is desolate, but there's a strange sense of familiarity. The rumors I've heard about this place give me a glimmer of hope. I pedal slowly through the streets, the bicycle creaking beneath me, as I search for a suitable place to make my new home. 11 a.m. I find it. A fortified house, seemingly untouched by the chaos around it. Its walls are sturdy, and there's even a basement. This place could be a fortress, a sanctuary in this hellish world. I approach cautiously, every sense on high alert. 12 p.m. I secure the area as best I can, setting up makeshift alarms and traps around the perimeter. The house is in surprisingly good condition, but I can't let my guard down. I start fortifying immediately, using the tools and materials I've gathered. The work is grueling, but it's necessary. 2 p.m. The sun is high, and the heat is almost unbearable, but I keep working. Each board nailed over a window, each reinforced door, feels like a step towards safety. I discover books on woodworking and metalworking, a goldmine of knowledge. 3 p.m. I take a break to read, absorbing the information as quickly as I can. These skills are crucial. The more I learn, the better my chances of surviving the next blood moon. I feel a flicker of hope. With this knowledge, I can make this place impenetrable. 5 p.m. Back to work. Using the techniques from the books, I start crafting better barricades and reinforcing the walls. It's slow progress, but each improvement brings a sense of accomplishment. I can feel the house becoming more secure, more like a true home. 6 p.m. Dinner is another can of cold beans, eaten quickly as I survey my work. The house is far from perfect, but it's a start. I need more supplies, more materials, but I'm making progress. I think about the next steps, planning my moves carefully. 7 p.m. The sun begins to set, casting long shadows over Navezgane. I finish the day's work, exhausted but determined. The house is starting to feel like a fortress, but I know there's much more to do. The next blood moon is always on my mind. 9 p.m. Night falls, and the familiar sounds of the undead start up again. The moans, the shuffling feet, the distant howls. 11 p.m. A small group of zombies tests the defenses. They claw at the barricades, but they hold. Each shot precise and deadly. Their bodies pile up outside, a grim testament to my growing skills and determination. 1 a.m. Exhaustion finally forces me to rest. The house is starting to feel like a home, but the fight is far from over. I have much more to do, more to learn, but I'm ready. July 25th, 2024, 6 a.m. The sun rises, casting its first light through the fortified windows of my new home in Navezgane. I wake up with a sense of purpose. Today, I'm diving into the books I found yesterday. These pages hold the key to making this place truly safe. 7 a.m. After a quick breakfast, I head to the small library I discovered within the house. The books are dusty, their covers worn, but inside are valuable lessons on woodworking and metalworking. I select a few and settle down to read. 8 a.m. The first book I open is on woodworking. The pages are filled with diagrams and instructions. One section catches my eye. To create a sturdy barricade, use 2x4 lumber, nailing it horizontally across the window frame. For added strength, overlap the boards, ensuring no gaps remain. Another page offers advice on tool maintenance. Keep your tools sharp and well-oiled. A dull blade or rusty saw can be dangerous and ineffective. Sharpen chisels and plane irons regularly, maintaining a consistent angle of 25 to 30 degrees. 10 a.m. Armed with this new knowledge, I head outside to gather materials. The area around the house is overgrown, but I find some usable wood in a nearby shed. I start working, applying what I've learned. The process is slow, but each nailed board feels like a step towards safety. 12 p.m. The next book I delve into focuses on metalworking. One section stands out. To forge metal reinforcements, heat the metal until it is cherry red, then hammer it into the desired shape. Quench in water to harden. Always wear protective gloves and goggles. Another useful tip: for stronger nails and brackets, use wrought iron if available. It's more malleable when heated and provides greater tensile strength once cooled. 1 p.m. I decide to set up a small forge in the backyard, using an old metal barrel and some bricks. It's a crude setup, but it will do. I gather metal scraps from the area, heating them in the makeshift forge until they glow. Following the book's instructions, I hammer them into shape, creating nails and brackets for reinforcement. 3 p.m. The work is grueling, the heat from the forge almost unbearable. Sweat pours down my face, mixing with soot and grime. My hands ache from the repetitive hammering, but I keep going. Each piece of metal I shape is a small victory, a testament to my growing skills. 5 p.m. As the afternoon wanes, I start applying the metal reinforcements to the house. I replace the weaker nails with the stronger ones I forged, and use the metal brackets to secure the wooden barricades more firmly. 6 p.m. Dinner is another can of cold beans. As I eat, I reflect on the day's progress. The books have been invaluable, turning what seemed like an insurmountable task into something manageable. I jot down notes in my journal, recording the techniques I've learned. 7 p.m. The sun sets. I do a final check of the fortifications, ensuring everything is secure. The house is much stronger now, but I know it's still not enough. The blood moon is always on my mind, a constant reminder of the dangers that lurk. 9 p.m. Night falls, and the familiar sounds of the undead start up again. I sit by the window, compound bow in hand, watching the darkness. The traps and fortifications I've set should hold, but I can't afford to be complacent. 11 p.m. A small group of zombies tests the defenses. They claw at the barricades, but they hold firm. I pick them off with the bow, each shot precise and deadly. Their bodies pile up outside. 1 a.m. Sleep finally overtakes me. July 26, 2024, 6 a.m. The first light of dawn breaks through the cracks in my fortified windows. Another day in Navezgane. Yesterday's lessons in woodworking and metalworking have given me a newfound sense of purpose. Today, I'll put that knowledge to use. 7 a.m. After a quick breakfast, I gather my tools and materials. I start with the windows, using the instructions from the book. To create a sturdy barricade, use 2x4 lumber, nailing it horizontally across the window frame. For added strength, overlap the boards, ensuring no gaps remain. The sound of hammering echoes through the empty house as I work. 8 a.m. With the windows secured, I move on to the doors. The book advises, Reinforce doors with metal brackets and crossbars. Use heavy-duty screws for maximum hold. I follow the instructions meticulously, feeling a sense of satisfaction with each completed task. 10 a.m. Next, I set up a proper workbench in the basement. The book on metalworking has a section on setting up a forge. To forge metal reinforcements, heat the metal until it is cherry red, then hammer it into the desired shape. Quench in water to harden. Always wear protective gloves and goggles. I construct a crude forge using an old metal barrel and some bricks, then gather metal scraps from the area. 11 a.m. The forge roars to life, the heat intense and almost unbearable. I begin heating the metal, shaping it with my hammer. The rhythmic clang of metal on metal is strangely soothing. I create nails, brackets, and reinforcements, following the book's instructions. 1 p.m. I take a break to eat, wiping sweat and soot from my face. The work is exhausting, but the results are worth it. I've crafted enough metal reinforcements to secure the weakest points of the house. 2 p.m. I return to the fortifications, using the newly forged nails and brackets to reinforce the doors and windows further. The house feels more secure with each improvement. The sense of vulnerability I felt when I first arrived is slowly being replaced by a growing confidence. 4 p.m. The sun is beginning to set, casting long shadows over Navezgane. I know I need to gather more materials, so I venture out cautiously, heading towards a nearby construction site I spotted earlier. The area is eerily quiet, the silence only broken by the distant moans of zombies. 5 p.m. At the construction site, I find a treasure trove of supplies. Concrete, metal beams, and more tools. I load up as much as I can carry and make my way back to the house. The journey is tense, but I manage to avoid any encounters with the undead. 7 p.m. Back at the house, I unload the supplies and continue working. Using the concrete and metal beams, I reinforce the outer walls. The book on woodworking advises, for added defense, create a layered barrier. Use concrete as the base layer, followed by wooden planks and metal reinforcements. 9 p.m. As night falls, I do a final check of the fortifications. The house is starting to feel like a fortress. The traps and fortifications I've set should hold, but I can't afford to be complacent. 11 p.m. A small group of zombies tests the defenses. They claw at the barricades, but they hold firm. I pick them off with the bow, each shot precise and deadly. 1 a.m. I drift off to sleep, looking forward to the next day's challenges. July 27th, 2024, 6 a.m. The house is becoming more secure, but I know I can't rely solely on scavenged supplies forever. Today, I'll start working towards self-sufficiency. 7 a.m. After a quick breakfast, I decide to begin with food and water. The garden in the backyard holds potential, but it needs work. I head outside, breathing in the cool morning air. The stench of decay is ever present, but I've grown used to it. It's just another part of this new world. 8 a.m. I find a packet of seeds in a nearby gardening store. The seeds are a mix of vegetables, beans, tomatoes, and carrots. I prepare the soil, following the instructions I found in one of the books. To grow healthy plants, ensure the soil is rich in nutrients. Turn the soil, mix in compost if available, and plant seeds at the recommended depth. 10 a.m. With the seeds planted, I turn my attention to water. There's an old rainwater collection system in the backyard, rusted and broken. I spend the next few hours repairing it, using pipes and barrels scavenged from the area. The book on survival skills advises, collect rainwater for a reliable and renewable source. Ensure the system is clean and free of contaminants. 12 p.m. The work is hard, but by midday, the system is operational. I set up barrels to catch the rainwater, connecting them with pipes to filter and store the water. It's a small step, but it feels like a significant achievement. 1 p.m. I take a break for lunch, eating a can of cold beans. As I eat, I think about the next steps. The house is becoming more secure, but there's always more to do. I need to ensure a steady supply of food and water, but I also need to continue fortifying the house and crafting weapons. 2 p.m. I return to the garden, checking the seeds and watering them. The book on gardening offers advice. Water plants regularly, but do not overwater. Ensure they receive adequate sunlight and protection from pests. I follow the instructions meticulously, hoping the plants will thrive. 3 p.m. With the garden and water system in place, I turn my attention back to the house. I reinforce the outer walls with the materials I found yesterday, using concrete and metal beams for added strength. The book on woodworking advises, for maximum defense, layer materials and reinforce weak points. 6 p.m. Dinner is another can of beans, eaten quickly as I survey my work. The garden and water system are a start, but there's still much more to do. I need to gather more supplies, find more seeds, and continue fortifying the house. 7 p.m. As the sun sets, I sit on the porch, watching the darkness gather. The night brings a sense of unease, but also a strange calm. The house is secure, and the traps are set. I feel a flicker of hope, a small spark of determination. 9 p.m. Night falls, and the familiar sounds of the undead start up again. 1 a.m. Exhaustion finally forces me to rest. I lie down. The house is becoming more secure, and the garden and water system are steps towards self-sufficiency. July 28th, 2024, 6 a.m. Today is the day. The second blood moon rises tonight, and I feel its oppressive presence already. Every instinct screams that this will be worse than the last. I have to be ready. 7 a.m. After a quick, tasteless breakfast, I start making my final preparations. The house is fortified, but I need to ensure everything is in place. I double-check the traps, reinforcing the weak points with extra nails and metal scraps. The garden and water system will have to wait. Surviving tonight is my only priority. 8 a.m. I gather my weapons. Spiked pipe, hunting rifle, and the makeshift explosives I crafted earlier. The bowstrings are taut, the spikes sharpened, the rifle loaded. Each weapon feels like an extension of myself, a tool for survival in this nightmare world. 10 a.m. I decide to make one last trip to the nearby hardware store. The streets are eerily quiet, the silence punctuated by the distant moans of zombies. My heart pounds in my chest as I move quickly, eyes scanning for any sign of danger. 11 a.m. The hardware store is a wreck, but I manage to find a few more supplies: nails, duct tape, and some metal sheets. I grab everything I can carry and make my way back to the house, every shadow a potential threat. 12 p.m. Back at the house, I reinforce the barricades with the new materials. I use the duct tape to secure the windows and doors further, layering the metal sheets for added protection. The sun is high, and the heat is oppressive. But I can't stop. Not now. 2 p.m. I take a break to eat, forcing down a can of beans. My hands tremble with fatigue, but I push through. The blood moon will rise soon, and I need to be ready. I check my weapons again, ensuring everything is in place. The garden and water system will be useless if I don't survive tonight. 4 p.m. The sky darkens, the air thick with anticipation. I set up additional traps around the perimeter, using the metal sheets to create makeshift barriers. The book on woodworking advises, layer materials and reinforce weak points for maximum defense. I follow the instructions meticulously, hoping it will be enough. 6 p.m. I sit on the porch, watching the darkness gather. The air is heavy, the silence oppressive. I can feel the blood moon rising, its presence a malevolent force in the night. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the fight to come. 8 p.m. Night falls, and the first sounds of the undead reach my ears. The moans, the shuffling feet, the distant howls. Now, it's a waiting game. 10 p.m. The blood moon rises, casting an eerie red glow over the landscape. The air is thick with tension, every shadow a potential threat. The first wave hits, zombies, dozens of them, swarming the perimeter. They claw at the barricades, testing my defenses. 11 p.m. The traps hold them off at first, spikes and tripwires taking down the front runners. But there are too many. They push forward, relentless, smashing against the barricades. I start firing, arrows finding their marks, but it's not enough. The barricades creak and groan under the pressure. 12 a.m. The first breach happens. A window shatters, and they pour in. I switch to the spiked pipe, swinging with all my might. The sound of bones crunching and flesh tearing fills the air. Blood splatters, mingling with the dirt and debris. My arms ache, but I can't stop. I can't afford to. 1 a.m. The battle intensifies. The house is filled with the stench of decay and the sounds of combat. I fight desperately, using every weapon at my disposal. The zombies are relentless, their vacant eyes fixed on me. Their movements jerky and unnatural. I swing the spiked pipe, feeling it connect with a sickening crunch. Blood and gore splatter everywhere, painting the walls in a gruesome tableau. 2 a.m. The propane bombs go off, a deafening explosion that lights up the night. The blast takes out a chunk of the horde, but the house shakes, debris flying everywhere. I'm thrown to the ground, ears ringing, vision blurred. When I get up, the scene is chaos. The barricades are failing and the zombies are inside. 3 a.m. I swing the spiked pipe, feeling it connect with flesh and bone. Blood splatters. I'm covered in cuts and bruises, exhaustion seeping into my bones. But I can't stop. I can't give up. 4 a.m. Just as I'm about to be overwhelmed, the tide begins to ebb. The first light of dawn is breaking, and the zombies start to retreat, their frenzy subsiding. I collapse to the floor, every muscle screaming in agony. The farmhouse is in ruins, but I'm alive. Barely. 5 a.m. The house is a wreck, but it held. The blood moon has passed, but I know it'll be back. But for now, I've survived.